What is an example of they don't make 'em like they used to? Story 1. Search engines. Sure, they were wonky and unreliable in the Wild West internet era. For example, Hotbot, Lycos, Webcrawler. But Google came along and revolutionized everything. Peak search engine reliability was probably in the mid-2010s, and it's been in a steep decline since then. Nowadays, when I search for anything on Google, it omits random keywords of mine, gives me irrelevant AI-generated answers, shows me Pinterest images, and pulls up irrelevant PDF files from things I distinctly did not search for. YouTube search is complete garbage too. After searching for a video, it'll show me 3 results followed by people also watched and finish watching. Then a bunch of irrelevant shorts and Jimmy Kimmel videos for whatever the fuck reason. Story 2. Fast food. Used to be delicious, good quantities, fairly cheap, and fast. Now, for example, I sit in a drive-thru for 20 mins at Taco Bell. My burrito supreme is like $8 now and is the size of that tornado thing you get at 7-Eleven, and tastes like bad grease. This is no way an attack on employees, but more on the higher-ups that make these decisions. Story 3. Reddit TBH. I've noticed they're sneaking more and more ads in the comments section, and it's ruining my experience on here. Edit to ad. I see a lot of people mentioning use an ad blocker, but honestly, I shouldn't have to. The point is, Reddit has become so inundated with ads that it's ruining the base-level experience. If you have to use another product to get rid of the ads, the problem is with Reddit, and by extension the internet as a whole. Story 4. Pyrex. The old stuff was borosilicate glass, highly resistant to heat stress and therefore great in the kitchen. The new stuff is tempered soda lime glass, which is stronger if you drop it, but can just shatter unexpectedly under certain heat-related circumstances, such as putting a cold Pyrex dish in the oven or a hot one under tap water, which were things you could usually do with old Pyrex with no problems. Story 5. When those magic eraser foam block scrubbers came out, they were amazing. Just wet one and it scrubbed years of carbon buildup from my stovetop. I'd get months of heavy use out of each one. Maybe a year or two after they were introduced, the quality nosedived. They tear apart and deteriorate after the first use. Story 6. Pretty much fucking everything online. Every physical object sold is garbage now. It used to be most stuff sold in most stores was garbage. But if you did research and bought something specific online, you could get something that would last. Now if you do research and buy something specific, you still get a hunk of crap. Only now it connects to Wi-Fi for some godforsaken reason. Story 7. TV seasons. You used to get 24-episode seasons every single year. Now we get 10-episode seasons that feel like long movies, sometimes every few years. It's stupid. I want a show I can binge for a long time, and so many shows get canceled before they get past their first short season. Story 8. Refrigerators, washing machines, hell, any major appliances. Planned obsolescence is built in, so you're spending the same amount of money, but getting a shittier, more unreliable product that will only last you 2 or 3 years. Because corporate greed, and because corporate dickheads don't give a fuck about you or the fucking planet. Story 9. It's not just one specific item, but I've been saying over the past few years how I miss seeing hand-carved designs. Looking at older buildings, cathedrals, or even furniture, you can see that carpenters used to spend weeks upon weeks hand-carving their masterpieces. Everything had intricate designs based upon the region or century, decade they were in. Now everything just looks mass-produced, flat, symmetrical, and lifeless. Everybody's everything looks like somebody else's something. But back in the day, great-great-great-great-grandpa was carving cherubs and filigree into works made out of stone, marble, wood. Story 10. McDonald's fries. They were better before they switched from tallow to vegetable oil. There's a great episode of Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History that covers it. The fries are vegetarian now, which is good, but the flavor isn't as great. I also haven't had McDonald's in over a decade. Not a huge fast food eater these days. Story 11. My family had the same GE microwave for 16-ish years. It finally stopped making things hot. I found out they still make that exact microwave and I bought it. Within a month, the buttons are broken. There are features the old unit had that the new one has had programmed out of it. It is already grinding and clicking and groaning. It won't last a year, let alone 16. Story 12. Shoes. If you're unwilling to spend over $200, you're going to get plastic shoes that if you're lucky will last a year. From sneakers, loafers, to boots, heels, and that woven sneaker material with the plastic molded soles have their analog in the throwaway slub-knit t-shirts, designed to be replaced frequently and destined to create more landfill mountains. Story 13. Anything accessible to normal working people has become cheaply made and poorly designed, I feel. Sure, you can still find exceptional quality, but I don't like having to pick between feeding my family and getting something nicer for myself. I have a full-time job in a school, and I work a second job to pay the bills. I have replaced so many things that are just designed for failure. Coffee makers aren't that great anymore. My old Mr. Coffee was a workhorse. The new one is okay, but already wearing out. I will say Timex watches still seem to be the same standard. Yes, cheap, but also reliable. Story 14. New cars. They put all kinds of convoluted garbage in them, presumably to hit ever-tightening emissions guidelines, but it makes them break earlier and makes them way more expensive to repair. Every reason you've seen as to why used cars are so expensive is bullshit. It's because new cars are hot garbage. 5 years ago, I bought a 2011 Accord in the same year that my parents bought a new Honda. They've spent at least $5,000 on repairs and various crap, and I've had to replace the thermostat and spark plugs, both of which I could do myself with a YouTube video. Edit. Just confirmed my parents' new car is a Pilot. Pilots had been around for over a decade at that point, and Hondas are one of the more reliable makes. Story 15. Any consumer electronics. Most brands have figured out that technology, at least used to, arguably no longer, moves fast enough that the new model they release every year will have just enough over the old one to sell anyway. This has led to them no longer caring about longevity. Story 16. KitchenAid mixers. They're so expensive now, and mine broke the first time I made focaccia. It was less than a year old and only used a handful of times. Thankfully, I have a handy neighbor who could fix it. My grandmother's is an insane workhorse and would never break a gear just because of a high hydration dough. Story 17. Bottles of glass soda. It was the best, this plastic shit. It's just not the same. Things no longer made in the USA. We used to have great things, but then greed took over and now you can't find a fucking TV made here, let alone a computer or most clothing either. Story 18. This answer is going to be different, but a rancher or farmer. Today, our neighbor who was 68 years old suddenly passed away. He leaves behind a beautiful ranch, his knowledge, and all the people whose lives he touched. We're not sure who his ranch will go to since he only has one son and he lives far away, but I pray that someone from the community will take over it and cherish it. No one is built like him anymore, but we can try. Story 19. Video games. Used to be hours and hours of fun for $20, $60. Now you need to deal with ads, pay to play, some super fucking complicated button scheme, and the patches. My lord, the fucking software patches. And the cutscenes. If you take weeks or months off to not play a game, you're gonna have to backtrack now. Between the overly complicated button scheme, power-ups, skill tree strategy that you started months ago, and the fucking ever-changing storyline. God damn. I remember I put Batman Arkham 3 down for a few months and had no idea what the fuck was going on. Couldn't drive the Batmobile or this fucking tank thing. I finally beat Horizon Zero Dawn, which you should too. And I was like, WTF happened again? Why were there 20-something hours of cutscenes in this shit? Did I save the world? You can't just go over to your buddy's house, pick up a controller and kill some zombies or WTR. Sure, you can play Madden, FIFA, or Mortal Kombat SF, but ain't no more couch co-op or just taking turns fighting bad guys in the jungle. Takes too damn long to learn the controls, and the storylines are too complicated for a bad soap opera. Story 20. Farmers markets. I used to be able to bring my dogs on their leashes, stroll multiple rows of stalls, see a ton of fresh fruits and vegetables, and buy cheap. There would usually be some guy selling local honey, a lady with 1,000 homemade hot sauces, jams, and pickles, maybe a rancher with frozen cuts of beef, and one person with non-agricultural products. Now my local one has more stalls of photographers, potholders, ceramics, and t-shirts than it does farmers. The produce in the farmer stalls always look puny and picked over, and there are signs posted everywhere that no dogs are allowed. Why bother getting up early for that? Story 21. My biggest gripe recently has been about the quality of pretty much everything. I have things from my mom that will outlive most of the garbage you can get now. Everything from dishes, cookware, clothes, blankets, furniture, hell, even just decor. My mom gave me a bunch of her decorations from the 90s and they're just sturdier. Everything now is cheap plastic and hot glue and something I won't feel bad about losing interest in and tossing out because A, it was cheap. I would like to have some things I can pass down to possible future kids, / nieces / nephews / cousins, but none of it will last that long. Story 22. Asterisk broadly gestures at everything asterisk. Like I saw a video that explained it perfectly. If the price on your favorite thing hasn't gone up that much in the past 30 or even 3 years, the manufacturer still has to make a profit. That ability to keep the price down is coming from using cheaper materials, or faster, cheaper labor and manufacturing processes. Also, corporations want us to replace, not reuse stuff. You just can't have prices stay the same and quality stay the same, and people are worried about money. If you're making something for the masses, they'll stop buying if the price goes up and quality stays the same. But if you drop the quality and keep the price steady, they'll keep on buying. Story 23. Maybe it's a boomer answer. But cars. I'm typing this comment from my 28-year-old Ford Ranger with over 350k miles on the original drivetrain. Most new vehicles are lucky to make it to 150k. When something breaks or starts acting weird on my truck, I can diagnose the issue, find the faulty part within an hour, and replace it myself all from my driveway. I can do all of my own maintenance with no issues. Modern cars have everything either buried under so much useless plastic bullshit that you can't find anything, have everything controlled by computers that only the dealership can gain access to and diagnose, or have it so replacing parts or doing maintenance yourself voids the manufacturer warranty. If any one of the hundreds of computers in a late-model vehicle were to fail, it would basically disable the entire car. The main computer in my vehicle barely works and has had very little effect on its functionality that I haven't been able to hardwire my way around. It's wild how insanely user-hostile cars have gotten. Story 24. Bowling alleys and lanes. A lot of alleys have had to switch to string pin setters because of cost reasons. It costs too much to maintain mechanical freefall pin setters. It costs too much to employ a mechanic to fix and maintain them. And parts of older pin setters are getting hard to find. Bowling isn't as popular as it used to be, and the customer base oftentimes isn't there to support freefall pin setters. A lot of bowlers would prefer freefall over string pin setters. Story 25. Food quality in general. Without going into too much detail, grapes that are organic naturally have seeds, which have cancer-preventing properties, and organic fruit is great. Guess what? You'll have a very hard job finding seedless, non-GMO grapes in supermarkets. Chocolate even used to be more actual cocoa now. It's just more chemicals made to taste like chocolate. Think American chocolate. Organic farm-grown food? Just everything is crappy and mass-produced in general now. Story 26. The Sims. Expansions used to be huge and few for the games. Tons of content in them really made it worth it to buy an additional game. It really was like a whole new game. Now, $5 for this stuff pack that has 15 items in it that should have come with this other expansion that's $40 even though we released it 7 years ago and it was part of the base game in Sims 2. Yeah. Story 27. The carpet in cars. I detail rental cars for a living, and all of my family's older vehicles, the carpet is thick and decently nice. Even in my Saturn. But in new cars, it's super thin and crappy. And it loves to pick up grass and pet hair. I was able to suck up all the dog hair from my dad's 07 Suburban with just a vacuum. But on a new one, you have to use soapstone, which ruins the carpet further, and it never looks quite brand new again. Story 28. An example of, they don't make them like they used to, could be vintage cars compared to modern vehicles. In the past, classic cars were often built with durable materials, intricate designs, and a focus on craftsmanship that gave them a unique charm and character. Many vintage cars have stood the test of time and are still admired for their style and quality. Story 29. Anything manufactured. White goods, electronics, food. My great-grandmother still had a fully operational fridge and vacuum cleaner from the 1950s. My mother was gifted kitchen appliances in 1978 when she got married, and we were still using them when I left home in 1997. Fast forward to the last 10 years, and I have had 2 juicers, 2 bar mix blenders, 3 food processors, 2 blenders, 3 toasters, 2 microwaves, 2 lawn mowers, 2 whippersnippers, 2 mobile phones, soon to be 3 because of that dumb 3G issue, 2 high-pressure cleaners, 2 slow cookers, 2 toasting presses. Bizarrely, I did have a set of electric beaters that I bought for $9 about 8 years ago, and they still work. And these were not cheap brands either, all supposedly reputable. Sunbeam, Fisher and Paykel, Ryobi, Samsung, etc. It's all crap now, made in the same factories as your no-name brands but with a higher price tag. And food. Shrinkflation, reducing or removing ingredients. secretly slipping imported content when they have historically used 100% Australian ingredients. Anything they can do to have a greater profit margin. There is no brand loyalty anymore. Everyone is out for a quick buck. Story 30. I tried to buy a water rocket for a science lesson. The old Park brand rockets are no longer manufactured. Instead, there's some off-brand I remember as a cheap competitor. The rockets in the 1980s were made of an indestructible transparent plastic so the water level could be seen while pouring. The air pump had a steel rod and a rubber seal, and was made of ABS or some tough plastic. The only rockets available in stores or on Amazon are made of a brittle, hard, opaque plastic. Not only do you have to guess how much water is in there, but the first time the rocket landed on cement, it broke from the impact. The air pump had a plastic push rod that threatens to break if pushed too hard, and the seal is just a circle of hard plastic. Story 31. Household appliances and air conditioners. In the rush to try and build more energy-efficient, environmentally friendly, sustainable, and smart machines, they neglected durability. Things that used to last minimum 10 years and up to 20+ years, you will be lucky to get 2 years without any issues. What a lot of companies don't tell you is that most manufacturers will basically stop making parts for machines that are 8, 10 years old, and those parts get marked up to ridiculous amounts in a bid to get you to buy the newer product. Story 32. The best example of this must be the light bulbs. Companies even met, in secret at the time, to agree to start producing literally shittier ones. One of the good ones made before is now famous for still working in the same fire station somewhere. Veritasium made a video about this topic that I can't recommend enough. No need for conspiracies when interests align. If only some more people could apply that logic today, no doubt we'd all be better off. Story 33. Chocolate in 2 ways. Many large chocolate companies like Cadbury and Hershey are replacing milk in chocolate with oil palm. It's primarily happening in Southeast Asia. Started with countries that produce palm oil, but it's likely to spread. Also, there is a new problem. Cocoa scarcity is occurring because bad weather is affecting the crop. This is bad because majority of the world's cocoa supply is concentrated in 3 countries: Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Indonesia. Manufacturers might adjust to this by reformulation. Story 34. No doors flew off of the 747s I flew in. I did first class to Hawaii once. It was just like in The Wedding Singer. Orange and white groovy open bench seating for the buffet, free piped-in music for headphones plug-in, stewardesses at our beck and call, in white go-go boots and miniskirts and offering complimentary cold duck. My dad and I were expecting a cheese board with cold duck slices. Story 35. Any appliance or tool, I have my grandfather's skill saw, plug that shit in and it works. He took care of it. But even if I do everything a manufacturer recommends after 2-5 years now, depending on use, something will break that is more expressive to fix than a new tool/appliance to fix. Story 36. Children's cartoons, stuff from the 90s, early 2000s, and even 80s were cleverly written, had jokes that still hold up today, and had compelling stories. It is only more recently where everything's been sanitized to death. A lot of the shows have no rewatch value, with a few exceptions. For example, Arthur. The first few seasons had excellent writing that not only children could enjoy, but the adults watching too. It had funny and witty writing. After a certain point, the show started gearing towards a younger demographic and just wasn't the same anymore. Think about it. If you search up Arthur Funny Compilation, all of the clips are from before season 16, before 2012. Want a different side note? 2D animation isn't what it used to be anymore. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.